And there's strike 3 called. The Mets win the pennant. In-house stopping. Johan Santana's for the first no-hitter in New York Mets history. Back at the wall. Lead in the catch. Andy Chavez. This one has a chance. Home run. Mike Piazza and the Mets lead.
is going at 18.
Behind the man. It gets through Buckner. Here comes Knight and the Mets win it. Got him.
And we are live. How you doing, Mets fans? It's your boy Wardy, and I appreciate everyone first chiming in live and on replay for the latest post-game show, as we'll be breaking down here fairly briefly the Mets' victory over the Nationals by a final score of 10-1, headlined by Luis Severino carving up batters once again, and the Mets having offense behind him, and then also Tyler McGill striking out 7, allowing 3 earned in the Mets' 5-1 defeat to the Miami Marlins is what we'll also be getting into. A lot of big updates on the Mets as a whole today, so if you haven't checked out the video that we posted a couple hours ago, highly implore you all to do so after watching the live show here on YouTube. Make sure to smash that like and subscribe on the easiest and best way to support the channel. Thank you all so much in advance as always. Also, apologies in advance as I am out of town. And also, everybody, please let me know how the volume is too, how the audio is, because I realized I had a massive mic issue for the video earlier. To everyone that watched it and still managed it, thank you so much for that. I appreciate it. Usually my audio isn't to that liking whatsoever, but make sure to let me know how the audio sounds as you guys are first chiming in. Greatly appreciate, and then we'll get going with the key takeaways from both these games today. Appreciate everyone first chiming in as always. I see Gregory, great member as always. Dominic, how you doing? Great member. Jordan, my man, how's it going? He says this may sound crazy, but he's been swinging with a different bat knob. I say go back to the no knob. Oh, in regards to McNeil, yes, I mean the no knob has been the way for Jeff. Don't deviate from that, right? If he has, I don't know how I feel about that personally. Carlos, how you doing? First chiming in. Frank, volume is good. Awesome. Happy to hear that. No name, James, everybody. Thank you all so much again for being in here. Shout out to our amazing sponsor, as always, at BetUS, as I'm going to be sharing some awesome MLB future bets that you guys may want to place for all your sports betting needs. Again, make sure you're doing it responsibly, but we'll get into that a little bit later into the show here. Again, this will not be a long one today. I'm out of town for the weekend, but I've been wanting to cover, especially not one, but 2 games today, this split doubleheader, and not a doubleheader, but split squad rather. And we saw a lot of key updates that David Stearns announced between Chi-Man Choi going down, Zach Short, who had a great day at the plate today, diehard Mets fan from New York as well. The passing, unfortunately, of his relative today came around the same time he found out he made the team and cracked that bench spot. Crazy day for him, a lot of emotions, but an easy guy to root for, to say the least. So we'll talk a little bit on that. Zach Short's performance against the Miami Marlins. Shintaro Fujinami, as we know, has been sent down. Sean Reed-Foley, Michael Tonkin, Johan Ramirez, 3 guys competing for 2 bullpen spots. Sean Reed-Foley may have just performed his way out of contention for said spots after allowing 2 runs and not even 1 full inning against the Miami Marlins today, unfortunately for his sake. Also, some other key updates too that, again, highly implore you all to check the video about that we discussed. Mark Vientos being optioned sent down. Why exactly did that happen? What does that mean for him and his development and his future in the organization? Again, make sure to check out that content after watching this one. Thank you guys once more. But let's dive into this one, everybody. Like I said, there was a lot of offense in this game, so that's why I titled it Mets versus Nationals post-game, even though we're talking about both games today. But especially last time, I think the algorithm just didn't understand the Mets playing 2 different teams in one day because of split squad, so I'm going to title it this way. Let's talk about the key takeaways. And for me, first and foremost, we have to headline Luis Severino, okay? I know the Mets might have scored 10 runs in this game, but nothing stands out more to me than Luis Severino's brilliance once again. Even against a lesser Washington Nationals team where you know exactly what you're getting from them, especially, they have a lot of guys that are fringe MLB caliber players currently in their lineup for the season. Does not change the fact, however, that Luis Severino has consistently been an absolute dog. He has been that guy all spring long. Today, he gives the Mets a beautiful final line that we would see, as you would see right here. Apologies for that, too, with the camera. I'm going to adjust that 1 second. But you would see from Luis Severino here, 5 innings of 4 hit, 1 earned run ball, 4 strikeouts, a 1.29 ERA to wrap up spring training in 4 starts. There we go. That's good enough for today as I'm troubleshooting everything. But as you guys see here, Sevy again, 5 innings, 4 hits. And what stands out to me, that fastball. The fastball topped out at 98 today, which was absolutely fantastic. The breaking pitches were working well too. As I take a look over to Baseball Savant today, again, we saw the eye test, of course, with someone like Severino. But as you go through his pitcher breakdown here through Baseball Savant, in case you guys haven't done this already, highly implore you to do so also. They have all the information that you could be looking for. Four-seam fastball topped out 98 today, sat 96. Sinker topped out 98 today, sat 95. Cutter topped out 95, sat 94. Slider topped out 89, sat 88. And then you see the changeup topped out at 87, sat 85. And the sweeper 86 and 85. We're looking at a true 6, if not 7 pitch arsenal. Let me do the math here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pitch arsenal. And we saw every pitch that you're going to get from Luis Severino this season. And he looked fantastic. Again, had a solid whiff rate as well. A lot of swing and misses on the fastball. A 59% whiff rate there that we saw on the four-seam today. Nothing else actually got whiffs. It was just that four-seam fastball, which was his most dominant pitch. But it was nice to see him having effectiveness with all of his off-speed and breaking pitches today too. Luis Severino, again, you don't want to buy too much stock in his spring outings. We're fully aware of that. This is the same Mets team that we saw Jose Quintana get worked yesterday, right? But he's still just getting acclimated and feeling good, ready for the season. We've seen that you need to take everything for the most part in spring training with a grain of salt, but I will leave this here for you guys to take however which way you want. Luis Severino has never had a spring training in his career this good statistically. The past couple of years, he's sat between an 8 and a 9 ERA in spring training. The years prior to that, sat in around a 3.5 ERA, if not higher, all of his previous years, including his best years in 2017, 2018, 2019 era. So I'm not saying that you need to put much stock into it, but I am saying that this is also an outlier. Luis Severino has never pitched this well in spring training in his career to this point. He said that this is the best he's felt in a very long time with his sleep regimen. So if this is cracking a code of something, what I know is Luis Severino is hopefully going to be a nice, impactful starter for this Mets rotation and surprise quite a bit of people this season. We all know he has the stuff, as I was explaining there. The velo is consistent. It's solid. The breaking pitches are solid too. It's just about locating and being comfortable out there, not being as fatigued early. Sevy's looked fresh. He's been composed. He said in his post-game today too, he feels really good, and you can tell just with the type of outings and the performances he's had every time he's been out there for the 4 starts we've seen this spring. From there, we also saw Edwin Sugar Diaz doing what he does best, and that's getting zeros. Scoreless inning, including 1 strikeout for Edwin today. That was likely his final outing too, because the Mets have their final spring game tomorrow against the Yankees, and that's wraps until Thursday against the Brewers. Jake Diekman with a scoreless inning, 2, allowed 1 hit, struck out 2. Jorge Lopez, who had a phenomenal spring. Again, a guy that's definitely locked in this bullpen. Excited to see more of him this year. This is a guy that could easily be a setup man for Edwin in times too, when called upon. And Juarez, who came in, again, a guy that will not be in the Mets bullpen to start the year, still had himself a fine final inning there for the Amazons, allowing just 1 hit. So that's what we saw pitching-wise from the guys in that first game, right? And as we get on to the second game here, and then we'll get back into breaking down the offense against the Nationals, because that is far and away the bulk of the conversation offensively today. Very little came from that Miami game. But as we look at the pitching from the second game, Tyler McGill, again, 5 innings, 3 hits, 3 earned runs, 2 walks, 7 strikeouts, 3.92 ERA to wrap up his spring. Sean Reed-Foley, who, as I mentioned, had been competing with Michael Tonkin and Yohan Ramirez for the final 2 bullpen spots in this bullpen. Now he probably finds himself on the outside looking in, because it really comes down to these final outings when you're competing like this. And SRF, who has cleared waivers for the Mets in the past, hopefully can do the same again should he stay in the organization. Because as I said earlier on Twitter, and I'll say again, I do believe Sean Reed-Foley is on the outside looking in to crack this Mets bullpen. I do believe Michael Tonkin and Yohan Ramirez, 2 offseason acquisitions, have performed tremendous for the most part this spring, are guys that could be very impactful for their bullpen, and either a multi-inning either way, the way that Tonkin's known for, or Yohan Ramirez, who you can bring in just a 1-inning and multi-inning, various ways you can get creative with, but a guy who has a very lively arm, playing to give, and another one that I'm in particular pretty intrigued by this season for this Mets bullpen. I love the configuration that David Stearns has built, and hopefully we see more differentiation in the way that you have one pitcher come into the next. That's another heavy emphasis we saw with David Stearns and his presser today when discussing the Mets' tough bullpen decisions, how we also want to make sure we're not in a position where we basically have duplicates. You want guys to be in different roles as much as possible with their release points, with the type of pitches that they have, and their utilization in either low leverage, mid leverage, high high leverage situations. All those factors come into play. But as I mentioned, Michael Tonkin, Johan Ramirez, and yes, Sean Reed-Foley still battling for those final two bullpen spots. So that's what we saw from the second game today. Again, that 5-1 loss against the Miami Marlins. There wasn't much to be had there. And before we get into more on the Marlins loss and discussion and the Mets dominating offensively against the Washington Nationals, which is never a bad thing, even in spring training, first hear a word from our amazing sponsor here at BetUS.
BetUS, America's favorite sportsbook and casino. Live betting and racebook. We're celebrating 30 years with a historic offer. A 125% sign-up bonus on your first 3 deposits. Plus 10% gambler's insurance. Get started today. BetUS, where the game begins.
Shout out, as always, to our amazing sponsor at BetUS for all of their support, everything sports betting related, whether it's NHL in season action, NBA in season action, MLB action that we'll be doing starting next week for our regular parlays, picks of the day, along with MLB futures I'm about to explain with you here. Again, they have all your sports betting needs. Someone said in the chat right now, does SRF have any options left? No, he does not. So again, that's why it's a tough decision, in particular for the Mets when evaluating the bullpen. But now let's get second. There we go. Hold on, everybody. Now let me show you what I want to show you, everybody. So as we go to MLB player projections, we go down here. Francisco Alvarez, regular season total home runs. Brandon Nimmo, regular season total home runs. Brandon Nimmo currently sits at 19.5 on the homers. Francisco Lindor is 22.5. I mean, you would be foolish, in my opinion, not to hammer both of the overs here, especially Francisco Alvarez, but Nimmo too, a guy that, again, cracked 20-plus home runs we saw last year. If you're trying to get in on MLB future action like this, I know the camera's really cut off right now, so ignore that. It's fine. You guys just got to focus on what's on screen anyways. Make sure you guys get in on the action here for my fellow Mets fans as well. In particular, absolutely love the odds on Francisco Alvarez. This truly feels like free money. That's easy, 125 to win 100 for him to, again, all he needs to do is have 23 home runs or more this season. So that's an easy hammer there. Brandon Nimmo, same applies. Brandon, I'm going to go a little bit later on. We're going to put 80 down to win us 61.54. Again, I have a lot of high hopes for Brandon and his power, but I also know that Alvarez, if we're betting between the two, Alvarez is much more of a lock where you know what you're going to get power-wise. So again, shout out to BetUS as always. I hope you guys get in on the action too. And now let's head back to our main slide. And also apologies in advance, as I know I probably had that running by accident, so bear with me, everybody. Just give me 1 second here. All right, now we're good? Awesome, I think we're good now. But again, guys and gals, now let's talk a little bit more on the offensive end of things, okay? So again, check out those future bets by clicking the link down below. That way you too get 125% bonus with not your first, not your second, but your first 3 deposits, as you see right there where it says link in the description for all your sports betting needs. But offensively, there was a lot that transpired today. So in particular, what stood out? Well, what stood out, as we saw, starts with, in my opinion, Starling Marte. Now, I know some of you might say, oh, of course, don't gamble like Ohtani. Don't gamble like Ohtani. Don't do it illegally. Don't potentially have your name wired with $4.5 million to an illegal bookmaker. Do things the legal way, do things the right way, and of course, bet responsibly. But furthermore, what I want to get into for a second is what we saw from Starling Marte today. Marte went 2 for 4, had 2 runs scored. Marte has had a very underwhelming spring, all spring long. So to see him back out there, have a nice productive multi-hit game was definitely positive, something I'm certainly taking every day of the week. Tyrone Taylor not only exemplified great defense in the outfield once again today, but had a multi-hit game with 2 RBIs. We love to see that. Pete Alonso, who I don't have in the biggest takeaways because some guys I think performed above him today, but Pete Alonso did what he's done all spring long. He's absolutely raked. Had himself another multi-hit game today too. Brandon Nimmo with a couple RBIs, only 1 hit, 1 for 4, but 2 RBIs for Brandon today. Brett Beatty stood out to me as well. Opposite field RBI, single to drive and a run. Brett Beatty has looked sharp for the majority of spring, and it's been great to see that continue now as we're oh so close to the regular season. Brett Beatty, we just want him to be healthy and locked in, guys, and be in a right mental mindset. And Beatty, now with 1 game left potentially to play this spring, is batting .255 with just under a 800 OPS. Honestly, if we can get consistency around an 800 OPS player from Brett Beatty, that would do wonders for this team. And the consistency, again, Brett, just continue to drive and lift and pull that baseball. And the defense, I know it's only going to continue to get better as you get older. So Brett Beatty, awesome outing from him today. Tyrone Taylor, as I mentioned, had Mets. Had his 2 hits, also had 2 walks. I mean, he literally did it all, which was so sick to see. I will never get tired of talking about Tyrone Taylor. He's an early favorite for me. DJ Stewart went 1 for 2 with 2 runs scored, had himself a double today, and got on base a couple more times with 2 walks. DJ with not even a 200 average and a sub 700 OPS. As things currently stand, will be on the Mets roster, but that may change as they are currently still evaluating their options externally in particular. So DJ, who still has a minor league option left, is likely going to come into play by the time we get to the first game of the season. By the time we get to opening day, I have a feeling we will have an announcement by then that DJ Stewart is not on the roster unless the Mets just, 1, didn't land Jordan Montgomery, and 2, didn't find a waiver wire pickup that they felt was worthy to acquire for a roster spot over DJ Stewart currently there with the team. But outside of that, again, we saw DJ do his thing, and there was really only one standout, as I mentioned, from the other game against the Miami Marlins today, and for the most part, that was Zach Short. Again, Zach Short, what a story this kid is. Again, 28 years of age, has been a journeyman in the MLB, has been the minors plenty. This spring, with 1 game left, a 308 average and 900 OPS. He's done tremendous. And what makes Zach Short stand out versus, say, a Jose Iglesias and some other veteran options the Mets have had on the outside looking in for the bench spot? Why does Zach Short win this? 1, it's awesome story. I love the fact that he's a Mets fan. Automatically a soft spot. So chills. Very happy about that. But 2, Zach Short's defensive ability is far and away the best of the options the Mets have here. Zach Short, you could even argue, is a better defender than Joey Wendell when Joey Wendell's at his best. And Wendell is exactly that defensive, versatile infield guy that the Mets brought in, like a Luis Guillorme, essentially, for late game replacements or to pinch hit in certain spots. Zach Short is a potential upgraded version of that. He just doesn't have as many MLB reps like a Joey Wendell, and he is definitely more diverse. He's a guy that's a righty bat that can handle third base without a problem. It can give you borderline Gold Glove defense from what we've seen so far this spring. He's looked tremendous in the hot corner and even in other respective infield positions. So having that infield diversity is huge. The Mets know that. They prioritize their defense. And one more thing that stood out so much too about him is the ability to be a righty bat that can play the third base position. If Brett Beatty goes through struggles early on the season, if he labors, the Mets will have an option there at third base. This is essentially why they initially had a level of interest in a Gio Urshela, for example. Zach Short falls in that Gio Urshela category, an infielder that can be placed all over the place and handle those positions well, and is at his best a high contact bat again, who we've seen power like never before, albeit at spring training, so I'm not going to get my hopes up on him being this huge home run gap to gap hitter. Zach Short's very much more of a singles and at best gap to gap guy, but hopefully displaying great defense when he's called upon, and ultimately I'm just really interested to see how he does on this Mets bench. It really surprised a lot of people, including myself to a degree today, but I'm rooting hard for him, and hopefully for his sake he plays his way into staying on this bench for as long as humanly possible. But he was that one standout offensively. Luke Voit did have himself a double today too, but of course he'll be starting the year in the minors should he stay in the organization. Jose Iglesias, who is expected to stay in the organization now, which is awesome, also had a hit today. You'll love to see that, and that's really it from both games combined. Just offensively, it was all against the Washington Nationals today. The Mets had 11 hits to the Nats 6, a 304 expected batting average. Lots to like there, including Francisco Alvarez, who I didn't even mention prior, had himself a double today too. So Alvi having himself a run scored, a double, doing what he does best. Alvarez finishes the spring exactly in the Alvarez fashion, a 214 average, but 813 OPS. I mean, he will probably have one more game tomorrow, I'd imagine, but you get what I'm saying for the most part. Outside of that, there isn't really too much that thing needs to be harped on here. Like I said, we went over a lot of the key updates in our show earlier, so make sure to check that out, guys and gals, in case you haven't already, on all the key updates with all the roster moves and all the changes that are going on. But everybody, thank you all so much for watching. I'm going to have to wrap things up now. A little short on time today, unfortunately, but we will be back at it in a full swing of things real soon. We'll be probably doing a regular season preview or something along those lines before the season actually begins, which I'm excited to come out with. Might do a collab for that too, and then we will have the regular season upon us. Still figuring out if I will be showing up for opening day or not, because the weather's looking finicky right now. I'm not right around the corner, so I got to get that figured out sooner than later, because if I will be there, might even do a pop-up table, so be on the lookout. Still figuring that out. All I know is that even if it's not opening day, I will most certainly be attending games this season where I will be letting you guys and gals know. That way you can come hang out. We can basically tailgate together. We'll do a live show in the parking lot there, either where the 7 line usually does their stuff, Darren's absolute beauty, or in the main parking lot. Either way, I'm really excited, and I appreciate everyone that took the time to watch today. And yes, there is legitimacy to the Montgomery rumors with the Mets connection. However, there's also legitimacy in saying that the Mets need to land him at their price, and it won't be anything otherwise. So we'll accept deferred payments the way that JD Martinez did. And speaking of which, JD Martinez can be back as soon as April 7th, according to Carlos Mendoza. So even ahead of schedule. I didn't think he was going to be back potentially that soon, but it does make sense considering the season is beginning here in March. So he's out for 10 days. He's been seen pitching. So basically, as soon as he can be called up for the minor leagues, he will be, and he will be the Mets starting DH. Get ready, baby. We finally have our own version, our Murderer's Row. Between Brandon Nimmo can give you 20, 25, maybe even north 30 bombs this year. Francisco Lindor 30 bombs. Pete Alonso 40 to 50 every single season. JD Martinez easily 30 if not more. And then you're getting Francisco Alvarez if he's batting there in the fifth spot, right? He's going to have 30 plus this season. Absolute lock. And then from there, you see what happens. Lots of power with this offense now that, man, I just get chills thinking about. And like I said, I'm going to get out of here, but we will talk more about them real soon. So be on the lookout, folks. More Mets discussions coming here on the channel. We got you covered with all your amazing needs regarding the New York Metropolitans. So have a great rest of your night, day, evening, whenever you're watching this.